We're going to get into the weeds a little bit. We're going to talk about the software we use to operate our private lending business.
Yeah.
Actually, there's actually quite a few tools now, like going through it in detail here that we use to operate the business. But there's definitely some ringleaders there that carry us on a day to day. But there's a lot of other smaller ones that are important as well.
Yeah, I think we get used to them as time goes on.
Yeah.
But thanks for tuning in to the Canadian Private Lenders Podcast, the show about starting a private lender in Canada, the mortgage industry, and the real estate industry. Your hosts are Neil Andrino and Ryan McNeil. Enjoy.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Episode 43 of the Canadian Private Lenders Podcast with your hosts, Ryan and Neil. Neil, how's it going today?
Doing great. A little cold. I just realized the AC is blasting.
Yeah.
But things are good. Happy to be here.
Good. Glad to hear it. Today we're going to get into the weeds a little bit. We're going to talk about the software we use to operate our private lending business.
Yeah. I think we've hinted at it before.
Yeah.
A few times, and we've had some on as guests.
Yep.
But we're actually going to dive into it a little bit more. And again, I mean, we'll get into it when we get there. But there's also a few items that we have for banking and then just general housekeeping items that we utilize. I think the one on the banking side, I mean, we all know what we're going to say, I think already, which is QuickBooks. If you're in business,
you need it.
Yeah, you need it. You live on it.
Yeah.
Everyone does. They actually dominate the market. Is
there even another option?
If you're anything like small, mid-sized business, I don't think so. It pretty much goes to enterprise solutions then, which I don't know if, I imagine they're probably in that space as well, but they are, they're a big business. And I mean, I don't know if he listens, but I know a fellow here that sold one of his companies to QuickBooks.
Okay.
Was
cool.
Pretty cool exit. Yeah. He had a payroll company and he sold to them.
They'd probably be pretty aggressive in that space just to maintain their share leadership, I would assume.
I think so. Yeah. I'd love to know the numbers of the deal.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Oh, cool.
And aside.
Yeah. So we'll get into the specifics here, but basically the big buckets we're going to get into is, our operating software, which I think we've talked about many times, Mortgage Automator, rocking the cap today. Shout out to those guys, have been, amazing for our business, but we'll go through the details of that platform as well. Neil hinted at banking systems, QuickBooks, and we're even going to get into the old Microsoft Office here a little bit and talk about that. So
yeah.
On that note, before we start, we got some exciting news coming. I won't make a formal announcement on it yet, but
couple different things actually.
I might have a hint on my head right now if you're watching on video, but we've got a new sponsor coming for the podcast, which is super exciting.
Yeah, super happy about that. We also actually have a second announcement to come to follow that as well.
Do we?
Again, I won't until we have it finalized. But we have potentially, maybe getting together on a more frequent basis in person, we'll say.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. That's exciting too. So a couple hooks there. Do you want to give any more, Neil, or we'll just we'll make the people wait?
I think we make the people wait because
awesome.
Both of them.
Stay tuned.
You stay tuned. Both of them are in the works, but I think they're going to be good for us. And if you're listening and you're interested and want to learn more, it's going to be a great opportunity to get to learn more, get more involved in the industry.
Absolutely. We're
going through not a tough time, but a different time than what we've all been used to in the last probably 5 to 8 years.
Yeah.
And so it's probably better now than ever to really get involved with the community and
100%
talk to different people that have done it.
Keep learning.
And I feel like it's a little slower right now. So it's a great opportunity to learn, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Right? Like when we were so busy and things are going great, it's like, okay, just focus on making as much damn money and making the best investments as you possibly can.
Yeah.
But now where it's a different place where it's like, okay, now I got to make sure my systems are really strong and I want to establish myself to be better for the next time there's an opportunity like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed that too with just our broker partners as well. Much more receptive to calls and meetings in the past year-ish or so.
Yeah.
Versus prior to that where it was just an absolute shit show every single day.
That being said, we're recording this in August and nobody's responding to my damn emails.
Well, it's August, buddy. They'll answer in September.
I know. I'm like, I don't have kids. So for me, I'm like, it's business as usual. Yeah. And everyone else, I'm on a Zoom with them and they're like, in the background. I got 1 sec. I think they have the house on fire. I'll be right back.
But my kids are literally in the next office over while we record this. So that tells you everything you need to know.
This is the best part about iPads and stuff nowadays.
Yeah.
I remember when the first time I ever saw that, this is a little side story, but I was working at Sport Check, selling somebody's shoes, and her kids would just not let up. Like they were just being psychotic, running around the store, grabbing shit. And she finally was like, 1 sec. Whips out her iPhone, puts on a video, puts it sideways, and then silence. Yeah. Like the whole story, just the kids, just like 3 of them, and then some random kid just pulled around, and they all just sitting on the bench watching something. And then I was able to sell all the parents' shoes, and then off they went.
Hilarious.
But anyways,
awesome. Should we rip through it, Neil, or do you got something?
Oh, well, one thing I was going to bring up on the news side, because we always want to try and hit something there.
Yeah.
Starting Thursday, which is today.
Okay.
We're now
August
offering
1st. Right?
Yes, August 1st.
Yep.
We got 30-year mortgages. They're back.
30-year term?
No.
Or AMS?
AMS.
Yeah, okay.
For res mortgages.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot that was coming.
The housing market is saved.
Yeah, exactly.
Prices to
We're
the
all
moon.
good. Perfect.
So beginning today, well, they have this recording when you're listening to this. It will have been a few weeks back, but August 1st, lenders can begin offering 30-year mortgage amortizations for first-time home buyers purchasing new builds.
It's only on new builds.
So, I mean, again, it's
for the 0.5% of the population that can afford that.
Being a first-time home buyer, trying to buy a new construction home, pretty much anywhere that you are, a new con home is going to be probably 30% more expensive than a resale house. This, I think, is designed to help reduce that a little bit. But for example, like they have one in here, the monthly cost of the average home in Canada would fall from $37.89 a month. That's a 25-year mortgage to $34.77.
Okay.
So it's like a $312 drop. It's actually maybe about 8% in your payment, which I guess isn't nothing. Like,
no,
if
it's significant.
Yeah, if you're approved for $600, like you might actually be more like $650 now.
Yep.
Which could make the difference. And it doesn't hurt to have an extra $300-$400 a month in your bank account. That's $4 or $5 grand a year. So it isn't nothing. And I think it's also, I think the focus is they're going to try to help to push people into more new construction homes.
Yeah.
Right. And to get the industry to spur and to build a bunch of new homes. Because it's like, it's getting to a point now where all the incentives, the tax incentives, any of the rebates, all those things are associated with new houses. Like, I might as well go that way, because buying a resale is, you know what I mean, going to be almost the same expense once I add up all the things associated with buying new.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Yeah. And I mean, you wonder if the impact is going to be seen of, the type of homes that are being built now, right? Like, you hear a lot of, like, the Canadian real estate investor guys talk about this all the time about, builders are still building those bigger 3-4 bedroom homes, 2,000 square foot plus, when there's really the need for those starter homes, maybe even smaller than we're used to here in Canada, that are 1,000 square feet or whatever it might be, around that range, 2-bedroom true starter home, right? That's affordable to get into the market. And you don't see many of those, at least locally here.
I was as you were, Lily, before you were about to say that, and as you were saying it, I was thinking the exact same thing, because it's funny. I look at the markets here that are popping off, and they're all, for us, they're $1 million plus homes, which would be a more expensive end for us. And that's pretty much all they build in these new neighborhoods. There's only like one that I can think of that I would say builds more of what we consider like a semi-detached, smaller type starter property. So it will be interesting to see, but the difficulty becomes serviceable land and all the other items.
They're not, builders aren't incentivized to do it. They don't make the margin off it, right? So there needs to be government incentives to incentivize builders to do this, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Right? So we'll see how that plays out. But let's jump into it here, Neil. So, okay, so the 4 big softwares we want to touch on. One, first and foremost, we live and breathe through Mortgage Automator, okay? Like, basically 90% of our business is managed within this software.
Yep.
First thing I do at the beginning of each day, and I know Zach's the same way, is log into the platform. And it's the last thing I log out of. Actually, that's a lie. I just never log out of it. Just leave the browser open. Right?
A burning tab.
Yeah. So Automator we've talked about it on here several times, but I'll just quickly go through it. It's a web-based platform. So the whole team has visibility to all the files. Okay. All mortgage submissions from our broker partners come through the software. So whether that comes in through a third party like a FileLogix or a Velocity, that gets directed right into our Automator file. It's already pre-populated with all of the borrower's details, the property details, what the loan request is. Basically, the only thing we have to change on there is what we're going to price it at. Okay.
Yep.
So it takes a lot of the work out of it. It really does. So some of the primary uses of the software include you got a beautiful dashboard that basically summarizes all your key metrics of your portfolio size, loan to value, what your split is for first and second mortgages or blanket mortgages, what the average rate is on your portfolio, what the average loan size is, really the key metrics. You have them at your fingertips. And beyond that, sorry, did you want to jump in there, Neil?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Beyond that, so that would be your funded loans. There's also a summary for your in-progress loans, and you can bucket those however you'd like. You can have them under new, You can have them under review, commitment issued, instructed to your lawyers, fund requested. You can make up whatever buckets you want on there, but it really helps keep you organized with those in progress loans and keep them moving along. The third bucket they also have is, of course, your discharge loans, the loans that have paid out. So you can go back and look at the history of any loans you've had and see what's paid out in the past year plus.
I'm going to like the one nice thing with this, with Automator too, is it's, I want to say fairly simple. I like it's intuitive.
It's intuitive.
And it gives you the visuals that make this kind of business so much easier. Because I think when you have, like I felt this way with a lot of my other things, like other businesses, is when you have a bunch of different moving parts, like sometimes you want to be able to just visualize them in a way where it's like, okay, we have this much out, or this is our total loan to value, and this is what where our area of concentrations are, and you have that ability to do that, which just makes so much sense. And I think, I mean, again, not trying to pump Automator, but really I think it's the only player. So that's why we talk about it.
Yeah, there is a couple other ones out there, like the loan office or the mortgage office. I think they go by as well. I've used that software before as well. It's got some great benefits as well. But at least at the time I used it, it's not a web-based platform like this, and wasn't quite as intuitive. Just to your point there, Neil, you don't necessarily get into the weeds in terms of underwriting files on a day-to-day basis, but you do need access to this to speak to these numbers from an investor perspective, right?
Yep.
And you can literally, just pop in there and get a snapshot in time at any given time and tell an investor exactly where our portfolio is as of today.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
cool.
I love being able to do that.
Yeah. Beyond that, so you've got databases within the software. You can store all of your borrowers, your brokers, your lawyers, investors, appraisers. And another massive benefit here is the reports. Okay. So there's massive functionality here. Covers everything you need from an analytics perspective, your accounting. You can pull your borrower payments from a click of a button. Like it's truly incredible the amount of time and admin burden this saves. And of course, beyond that, there's also loan servicing and fund servicing for those who operate a MIC or mutual fund trust.
Yeah. The investor management's nice as well. I think it's a little more designed for direct lending.
Yeah. They've got some fun structures. I think they're working on additions for that as well.
Yeah, I think they're working exactly. I think they have it really well laid out. If you're someone who's looking to do a business where you're directly allocating funds, it's really well laid out. And to your point, their fund side is still growing. But that's the other nice thing. Two things I think I want to add on this is just not to be pumping on here, but it's built by people who are from the private lending space, and they're constantly upgrading it.
Yep, so, exactly. 100%. Well said, Neil.
Can you, for those who might not know, talk about Velocity and FileLogix? Even though we're not directly using them, we're receiving a lot from them.
We're not. So FileLogix is definitely the number one submission platform for mortgage brokers in Canada.
Yep.
Okay. So that means basically their brokerage would be able to, they would type in all the details of whatever their borrower is needed for a loan application, submit it into the FileLogix platform, and they would choose Keystone Capital Group, or they would choose BMO or Home Trust or whoever, right? Wherever they're submitting it to. And it would go to that business into their whatever their software is.
Interesting.
Automator acts as a third-party connector to them. So we don't actually have visibility in our business to FileLogix, whereas some lenders would be directly connected. It just filters through the Automator system. And it makes it much easier too, because sometimes there's issues with lenders only being on certain platforms. Maybe they're only on FileLogix, or they're on Velocity, they're on Finmo, Lendesk. There's some other ones as well. The good thing is that the three biggest ones in the industry, Automator's connected to. So we're listed on all three of those. And any private lender who has Automator will also be able to be listed on all three of those.
Nice.
And we pay a fee to do that, of course.
We should get someone from FileLogix to come on and just explain their end of the business.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of brokers that listen, so they'd probably appreciate hearing what FileLogix has to them and what else they can do.
Yep.
Number two, I mean, now we've hammered on Automator as again, it is it's
a game changer.
Yeah. It's like the I'm trying to remember what the girl is from iRobot, and there's like the core system that runs all the little robots. What is it? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you remember iRobot? Not at all. Okay, well, if anyone does, you know what I'm talking about. There's like that main core system that Will Smith has to shut down.
Yeah, the core system.
Yeah, the core system. That's what it is. That's Automator. Banking, I mean, obviously, I don't think there's a set banking software. Every bank has their own. But on the back end, they probably all have a similar person that puts it together for them. But we use the online banking systems for processing your transactions, pulling investor capital. Again, if you're looking at getting into this business and you don't necessarily have commercial accounts, there is regular personal banking online. And then with any of these companies, they have a commercial banking platform, which is a completely separate online portal that gives you a lot of different flexibilities and functionalities, which is debiting and crediting people's accounts, right? It's like when you think about any business that you go and like subscribe to or do anything with, they debit from your account consistently. And there's also times when you might get a refund that they have to credit your account. Once you get to being a business, you have that ability. It takes time though. It's not something you just go sign up and be like, I'm starting a private lender so I can debit and credit millions of dollars. And like, no.
Yeah.
Like you earn the ability to do that. And it's not based on your credit score. It's based on literally building a relationship with the bank, showing years of history, and they'll slowly increase that. They also are going to look for you to be able to have backable funds. Like it gets to a point where, yeah, cool. If you can debit $1 million, like they need to know that if it came down to it, you could also credit that back. So anyways, long story short, one thing I find is kind of funny with these, also, this is a complete aside, my usual, every time I go on the commercial side, it's like going on Windows XP. Like they have these really beautiful consumer facing websites now. They all have like beautiful apps, beautiful websites. Then you're like, all right, you like switch, click the drop down, click commercial banking, log in, and your computer just like swaps back to like Windows XP. It's like square box. Everything's like square box. It's like legit just font, no colors, no textures on the screen. But like, yeah, you're here for a different purpose. Like we don't need to sell you on this.
For sure. Yeah. But although sometimes I wish there was updated functionality with some of the commercial platforms that I've seen, but
some of it is brutal.
Yeah, especially with, like you said, how far the personal banking sides come.
Yeah.
From an app perspective or even online banking, right? Like it's just like, let's invest some dollars with the commercial side here too, guys.
It's funny because I bet you if you look at their revenue too, the revenue from the commercial side is probably higher, honestly. I'd say because
it has to be. There's bigger balances, much bigger balances in those accounts.
Much bigger balances and the fees. When in personal accounts, like we'll waive the fees. There's no fees, free credit card. This
absolutely.
Commercial, you get basic credit cards, $30 a credit card. You bank account, it's $20 a thing plus $5 a transaction. Like,
and most businesses aren't even looking at that stuff, right?
No.
Like, you're right. From the personal banking side, it's purely a volume thing. Can we get another person signed up on our platform, right, to increase our numbers? Whereas they're actually making profit on the commercial banking side, right? So let's invest some dollars on their big 5, big 6.
Help us out. But anyways, to just finish that off, like basically all the money movement goes through the online banking system. So we got pulling borrower payments, paying our vendors, and paying our investors. That's all run through the online banking systems. The actual calculations, though, are done outside of that. So this is just literally us typically manually inputting dollar amounts and shooting those off.
Yeah, exactly. So, paying vendors, like you said, but the nice thing is that tying back to Automator here, like if we run our, we just ran our August pad or pre-authorized debit for all of our borrowers, and it literally click the button, it creates a text file, upload that text file to our commercial banking, and it literally pulls the payments. Like 2 clicks of a button. It's insane.
That's badass.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. So we got to get there on our investor side as well. It's a little bit more complex with that, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool how that works. So
that is very neat.
Why don't you go through number 3 as well, Neil, since you tapped on this already?
Yeah. So number 3, and I don't want to say it's my favorite, but I've spent a lot of time in here, and I've probably owned about 20 subscriptions to this, is QuickBooks. Everyone maybe knows it as QBO. QuickBooks Online is, I think, the one that everyone pretty much uses. It's a all-encompassing accounting management software. If you haven't used it, it has literally everything you could possibly think of when it comes to accounting. It's designed so that you can be in there. You can have your accountant separately in there. You can have administrators. You can have other staff in there. If you do payroll, you can run your payroll through their payroll company that's associated with it. You can do your time clocking through there through a thing called T-Sheets that's also connected to it. So it'll automatically, it goes on all your staff's phones, uploads their hours, it uploads their locations. They have to put in the data of where they were working, when they took their lunch, and it tabulates all of that. And then it automatically assigns that in your bank account when the transaction goes through. The other kind of neat thing is, I don't know if they've gotten into using the term AI yet, but they've been doing this for as long as I've been using it, where QuickBooks learns what your transactions are. So at first, you start by labeling a lot of them, right? You go through your credit card statement and say, this was an expense for this was an expense for this. After a certain period of time, QuickBooks just starts to automatically know what it is, and it will label like 80% of your transactions. You can very quickly review what you're going to need. It also gives you the ability to print reports at any time, which is really nice. If you're on top of your bookkeeping and tax filing, you can print a report and say like Q1 2024, Q2 year to date. Those things you can pull in 2 seconds. So again, I think everyone's already on it. If you're in the business world, you're on QBO, and you don't have to be like a huge business. I pretty much once you have a few moving parts, it's
a necessity, right?
going from a spreadsheet to this is the necessity.
Absolutely.
Most accountants kind of expect it now. They're like,
Yes.
this is how we want to be tied in. We don't want to be dealing with your like bank statements.
They probably wouldn't deal with you from a bookkeeping perspective if you didn't have QBO, right? So
yeah,
and I personally don't get in there super often myself, but in the few times that I have, it's extremely intuitive as well to use, right? It's very user friendly, like you said. Click of a button, you're pulling reports for a quarterly, monthly financials or whatever you need, right?
100%. I'll say it's intuitive, but there is so much shit. You're like, I just need a report. And you click reports. There's 49 options. You're like, oh god, okay. Like I know I need a report. Let me just take a browse through this. But yeah, it was a game changer when it came out. Oh, and Dex receipt scanning. I forgot about that. That's the other thing. It's gotten to the point now where you just take a picture of your receipt, it automatically scans it and attributes it to one of the expenses in your bank account, which is
crazy. No labeling expenses or anything anymore. You just take the picture and you throw it out.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, you get the next one?
Yeah, so last one here, and this is one that I'm pretty passionate about. I'm a big Excel geek, have been for I was going to say most of my career, most of my life actually. So quick story, I actually when I was probably 9 or 10 years old, my dad started taking me to
Excel camp.
I wish I should have. Basically, we would go do hockey pools and during the NHL playoffs. Okay, so it was a business that he had a friend at, and there was like, I don't know, 50, 75 people there. Okay, and the way he approached it was that he would use a very simple Excel template. And would say, I'm going to pick these 4 teams to make it to the semifinals in the NHL playoffs. So I'm going to allocate, we'll say 6, each team plays 6 games per series on average. We're going to multiply that out, and I'm going to pick the top players and basically say, this is what the games played in the playoffs are going to be. And we're going to multiply that by how many points per game they had in the regular season, and then sort. And that was our list that we chose from.
No shit.
Yeah. So that's how I learned to use Excel as a tool. I told you I'm a big Excel geek, but and that was
also a sports betting pool geek.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Don't mind that. Yeah. But and I actually won that pool one year. I don't know. I was like 12 or 13 years old.
Match. You're like, I'm all in.
And it was like $400 that I won. So crazy amount when I was that young, right? So I remember it was 2001, actually, now that I think about it. Big year for me.
That's when you knew you started getting into private lending.
Yeah.
I got the funds to do it.
But you know what, man? That actually has been so beneficial in my career, just being not intimidated to use Excel, and I'm not talking, for managing our business on a day-to-day. We used to, when I first came into the industry, we were still managing part of our business, tracking loans through Excel. That's crazy. You don't want to be doing it that way. Automator's taking that away completely. More so for just simple deal analysis. Calculating LTVs. You might have 6 different properties that you're calculating different mortgage balances, and you want to just list them out, calculate what your LTV is. Maybe adjust some numbers there that you don't believe are true. Prior to coming into the mortgage industry, I spent a lot of time in the consumer goods industry as a sales analyst and account manager, sorting through thousands of lines of data. Right, so data was very readily available in that industry, but it allowed me to create stories out of data. Right, sort through data, develop charts, build strong presentations to use for sales reasons, right?
Yeah.
And, we don't need to get to that level of detail in this industry. And a lot of that's more readily available now through reporting that comes out of our other softwares like QuickBooks and Automator.
Yeah.
But just the ability to being able to sort that in Excel, it's still an amazing tool to use, right? So I'm still in it every single day. So that's a big part of our business as well.
Excel's a beast. I use it frequently as well. I added a couple on here. Just side note,
let's do it.
Communications. We don't really use anything special, but I think for a lot of companies, they like to use Slack.
Yep.
I don't know. We could get MSN set up again, but
ICQ.
Yeah,
that's probably before your time.
Before my time, but I have heard about it. But so that's one thing I thought of, and then also marketing. I think that's one thing we use a little bit of is Canva and
yes, great point.
Yeah, I think that'd be one.
That was a miss not to have on here.
Yeah, but marketing, I'd say you probably do more of it than I do. So I would say, but Canva is probably the primary.
Yeah, Canva's been huge. And speaking of using data to create presentations, so a lot of those old where I develop Excel data and make it into a PowerPoint presentation, Canva's kind of alleviated a lot of that now because of how user friendly that platform is.
Yeah,
and I use it for a lot of our social media posts, even covers for different reels on Instagram. banners on LinkedIn, all that stuff, right? It's super user friendly, really easy to use. Highly recommend for even people who are small, starting a new business. If you can dabble around, do a couple tutorials on YouTube for Canva, it'll set you apart.
1000%. I was overwhelmed. I've always been overwhelmed when I went to go start a business, and I'd see people have these like beautiful pamphlets or posters or whatever it was, and I'm like, damn, those are sweet. I wish I could have those.
Yep.
And mine were always really rough because I'd be using like PowerPoint. Canva's a beast. It has so like you said, so many templates. A couple other things that are really cool is you can buy and bring in templates. So, and they're readily available. So let's say you're doing like, you want to have a flyer on selling like horse products, like something so random. I swear to God, if you go on Etsy and you type in horse product flyer, there will be a flyer on there somewhere for like $5 that's designed to go into Canva. And for you buy for $5, it gives you the file. You drag and drop that in Canva, and then you just put in your own words. Use it on the real estate site all the time. It makes beautiful covers and booklets. Also, the other one that I've used I thought really interesting was the AI tool. So sometimes I found like I'll be digging for a photo and none of them are really that great. I was trying to create a oceanfront scene with a beach with some blowing grass and a horse just like in there, and I couldn't really find one online that I loved, and like a lot of them were old, so the resolution wasn't that great or the colors weren't fitting the rest of the booklet. I just literally typed in, there's a little chat bar on the side of Canva, and I said, photo of horse in windy beachfront, tall grass scenario. And it 10 seconds later popped me out a photo, and I was like, damn, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I actually ended up using that one, but then I went, make it a little bit softer, and it like softened all the edges. Then I was like, make it a little bit like more sunset, and then it just changed all the colors. And it would do whatever you want. I'm like, move the horse, and like, so you could, and you typed it in. You didn't have to like do anything special. You were just like, do this for me. So anyways, to pump off on Canva, that's a very cool tool.
And we're just getting started in the AI side of things too, right? It's just it's like in its infancy now. It's going to be pretty cool to see how it rolls out,
especially in the marketing world.
And just on that note as well, I do use Chat GPT as well for things like monthly newsletters that go out. I'll prompt it and like give it, say, this is what I want to write about. Use these details in it, but it drafts it all up, right? And it'll save me 10 minutes going through, or maybe even longer than that going through it, right? And obviously you need to proofread that because some of the language it uses is a little bit questionable. And
Shakespearean.
Yeah, exactly. So. But that's another one too. So actually, there's actually quite a few tools now, like going through it in detail here that we use to operate the business. But
there's
definitely some ringleaders there that carry us on a day to day. But there's a lot of other smaller ones that are important as well.
Yeah, I think we get used to them as time goes on.
Yeah.
But anyways,
anything else, Neil?
No, I can't think of anything else. iMessage, but
exactly. Yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for listening.
Yep. Hey guys, it's Neil Andrino, your co-host and your co-founder at Keystone Capital and Director of Investor Relations. I'm also a real estate agent, real estate investor, and business owner.
And your co-host here, Ryan McNeil. I'm the co-founder and president of Keystone Capital Group. Keystone Capital Group is licensed under the Mortgage Regulations Act of Nova Scotia, license number 3000549. And through FCMB, license number 88799. And keep in mind, the views of this podcast are for informational purposes only and is not financial advice.